Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fridays with Sue and Steph. It happens, doesn't it seem like it happens more than every 7 days, Steph?
Yeah, I feel like it's every other day.
Yeah, it's so weird. We've always talked about how there's a Monday and a Friday, but man,
Exactly.
it totally feels that way. It's just so bizarre. Like, what happens in between?
I don't know. My mom always said that time goes faster as you get older. I thought it was such a crazy saying. It's
That's
totally
because
true.
you weren't old. But every old
Exactly. Now
person
I
knows
am.
that.
And she's right.
No, I mean, the truth is like summer. Summer was a lifetime. Summer
Hmm.
is like 8 weeks. It's
Yeah, it's a
not a
blink.
lifetime. Right. Okay, so we have a treat because we have Sharon Brecher with us today, who is the author of Miserable Mom, The Do's and Don'ts of Sending Your Kid to College. So, hey, Sharon, thanks so much for
Oh,
coming on.
thank you so much for having me.
And I'm so glad the sun has risen because it is very early for you where you live.
It is, but getting up to be with the two of you is completely worth it. So thank you.
Nice.
Oh. Okay,
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Oh, good. Did I mention how beautiful the two of you look this morning as well?
Oh, go on. No, really, go on.
Oh, okay. Well, you're gorgeous.
all right, so we are here because we want to share with you. So Sharon wrote a book that's personal to her about sending off her kids to college. And, between us, we have, I think I figured it out, we have 10 times that we have dealt with amongst the three of us sending kids to college. So there's no way we could tell you all the things that we think you shouldn't do because we did them and all the things you should do. There's just no way that's going to happen today. So we're going to start. Let's start with Sharon. Give us your very best do.
My very best do the way you should behave.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the way you should behave when you send your kids to college is you should be super excited for them. You should step back and allow them to do everything on their own because they are maturing and becoming adults and clearly ready and able to do all of this. And you should just appreciate that they are now adults in the world and you should just step back and watch it all happen.
Okay, so I'm going to point out that Sharon is being sarcastic because, yes, that is in an ideal world, but very few actually are able to enter that space for the first time. Like, you don't know what the hell you're doing, and you're supposed to just have all those right emotions around it. Okay, so thank you. We know what aspirationally you should do. And then I am going to start. Should we just do do's or should we do do's and then don'ts and then back and forth? What do you think?
Are you asking me? I
Yeah,
love the
sure.
do and don't together.
Okay, so you do the don't that goes with it.
So the don't is don't hold their hand like they're still going to kindergarten.
Oh, you should have told me that one.
Oh, that was yours? Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's what I did.
Oh. But you know what? That's what this book is about. I mean, truly, all the do's and don'ts, it's not about how I did everything right. It's about how and by the way, all of my friends and everyone around me did all of the don'ts. And the reason we did the don'ts is because we're human and we love our kids and we're used to having them at home with us. And now they're going out into the world. And as much as we want that, we're also terrified and nervous and all of that. And so if you're a don't person, then welcome to the Miserable Mom Club, because I think that's what it's all about, is just kind of like acknowledging it and laughing at it.
That's great. Okay, Steph, give us a do and a don't.
Okay. So the don't is don't tell them it's going to be the best 4 years of their life.
Good one.
And do tell them there will be ups and downs.
Yeah.
Because it all goes together.
Totally.
Okay, here's my do. My do is probably related to my don't, because aren't they all?
Yeah.
And we are getting spammed like crazy over here.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on. It's so annoying. Hey, spammers, leave us alone. We've got some serious stuff to do here. So I have told this over and over again that I was a wreck when my oldest and subsequent kids were leaving. It was devastating for me. And in retrospect, had I had more self-awareness, which I want to put out there for you, if you're having a hard time, find a therapist. And don't just find a therapist, actually. Find a good therapist, one that you feel like is a good match for you. Because I have found therapists that were not the right click for me, but finding the right therapist can really give you a space where you can be yourself. You can be your crazy self, which probably isn't the best showing to your kid as they're going through their own separation and you're falling apart. That's probably not the best burden to put on them. And so, like, if you can find a therapist that you click with and you really feel bolstered by, I say to you, go for it, because it's probably the difference between being entirely miserable and having that safe space. Anyway, I did not do that until after my youngest left for college, but it has been really, really helpful. More than helpful, life-saving, actually life-saving. And then my don't goes, I guess I already said it, don't put it on your kids, because that is a huge burden. They are dealing with their own anxiety about leaving. And then they see us falling apart. They're aware of it. Even if we're trying to keep it from them, it's such a burden. Like, the last thing I ever wanted was for a kid to say, "Oh man, you look so sad. Maybe I'll stay home." Like, no,
Right.
that's not ever a goal. So finding a way, and if you don't have a therapist and you have those fabulous friends that you can do it with, that works too. Okay, back to Sharon for her next round.
Well, I would just, to add to what you just said, that is one of the things that I actually talk about in the book, is about how I was dealing with all of this emotion, because it's hard letting go. It's hard sending your kid out into the world. And I totally agree with you that if we can find a way to deal with it without putting it on them, that's all the difference in the world, because they have their own stuff that they're bringing with them, and it's new and it's scary and it's exciting and it's nerve-wracking and all the things that it should be. But the last thing they should be worrying about is how their mom is doing at home, and worried about that. They've got enough on their plate. So I agree with you.
I have to ask I'm going to go back and ask my oldest, like, how she felt seeing her mother, like, unhinged.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, you're not going to ask your business partner how I felt?
No. First of all, you've told me. Second of all, I want to know what gets discussed in therapy from my kids. Like, that they are scarred, completely scarred as a result of my behavior.
You know what? There's something to just being real also, though,
Yeah.
and letting your kids see that you're a real human being with real
Yeah, well,
emotions.
I was going to say that I don't think the mission is to not show them that we're sad. I think it's to not show them that we are devastated. Like, there's a big spread there.
Yeah,
and so it's sad. I mean, they should know we're going to miss them. That would be horrible if you're like, "Hey, bye, out the door, bye."
Thanks for taking my next one.
Oh, sorry. Okay, you go, Steph.
My next one was, don't tell them. Well, how should I say this? Do tell them how excited you are for them and how this is, great next step, and you are 100% behind them, and you will miss them.
Yep.
As simple as that.
Yeah, that's great.
As simple as that, and as hard as that. So
exactly.
I
meant simply said. Sorry.
Yeah.
Simply said, not everything behind it. Exactly.
Yeah. And one of the things that I found in my family, now I have 5 kids, but each time someone left, the space was occupied by someone else who got to have more space than they had before. Mm-hmm. So what I want to say is, and that, if you have a 1 and it's an oldest and a youngest and a middle, that's not going to be your emotion. But if you have a 1, I think you should do the same thing that I'm going to say, which is plan for something after they have left in a hopeful way, in a positive way, something that you might not have been able to do before, a staycation, a romantic dinner, like whatever it is. Just have something that you're looking forward to, so that even though it's really hard, and even though driving away or however your kid is getting to school has its pain and its grief, have something to look forward to.
I totally agree. And the other thing that I will say is, what this book is truly intended to do is to show people that you're not alone. You're not the only one that feels these things. And every year parents are sending their kids off to college and going through these emotions. And I really do think that knowing you're not alone in those feelings is very helpful. And, having something to look forward to for yourself, I completely agree, helps get you through. And trying to step back and kind of laugh a little bit, if you can see the humor in the way those emotions sometimes make you feel and react, can just be helpful, because it's like anything in life. If you realize you're not alone and you can smile, I just think it can help everything be a little bit better.
Sharon, do you have a copy of your book you can show us?
I do. So can you see it?
Yeah.
It's called Miserable Mom, The Do's and Don'ts of Sending Your Kid to College.
And how can somebody get it?
So it's on Amazon. And if you go into Amazon books and type in Miserable Mom, The Do's and Don'ts of Sending Your Kid to College, you can order it and it'll be at your house within days.
Okay, I'm just so happy for the miracle of the search bar. It's so amazing.
Exactly.
Type it in and get the book. Okay, so Sharon, why don't you wrap it up for us with like your favorite anecdote in the book?
I mean, the whole book is like my favorite experience, and it surrounds both dropping off my daughter. The other part that I love about the book is the part where I come home. I have a younger son as well. And I came home, and as hard as I tried to be excited for my daughter that she was going, I also tried really hard to not completely suffocate my son. And one of the do's and the don'ts in the book that I have is to find fun ways to spend time with your younger child if you have one, and not completely suffocate him. And the image is me chasing him down on the baseball field saying, "Is this a good time for us to play?" So, that's what the book is about. It's about bringing your kid to college, dropping them off, coming back home, and dealing with all of the emotion, because we're just real and raw and we're human.
Okay, here's my question to all of us are in the same boat. We have no kids at home anymore.
Yep.
So my youngest, I think he loved being the only kid. I think sometimes when the whole family's together, it's a little overwhelming for him. Did you have that in your house where it wasn't so bad? It wasn't the way you thought it would be, like this kid grieving the loss of all the other kids at home?
You're asking me if I had that? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the other thing. A lot of the jokes in the book surround my son taking over my daughter's room and telling her that the guest room is down the hall when she comes home, and all the things that he did with her stuff, how he sold them all on eBay and all of that. I think it was both for him, truly. I think that he loved the extra attention in a lot of ways that he never really had before. And then I think there were times where, he did something wrong, or there was a problem at school or whatever. And
he hated his mother.
Right. Exactly. He needed someone to agree with him about how awful I actually was in the moment, or whatever it was. So I think he also missed her, but that was what the phone was for. He would call and complain about me.
And Steph, how about your youngest?
Yeah, I would say, she was nervous about the focus being on her. But I think there was also, it just created a different environment, but she would, like usually like by like the third question at dinner time, she's like, "Oh my God, I wish the boys were home."
That's so funny. Yeah, no, and this is I don't know where this conversation is going to go with what I'm about to say, but all of this is retrospective. And so like, I often think about, when people say things like it's all going to work out, how there is a time in there where we don't know.
Yeah.
And we don't, like, that is such a hard time to sit through. Like, we don't know if it's going to be okay when we send our kid off to college.
Right.
And here we are, three moms telling you that we were okay afterwards, but we can't convince you that you are going to feel that same way for 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, however you experience this. So somehow in that in-between space, we have to figure out how to talk about that. Like, what does it look like when everyone's telling you you're going to be fine and you're thinking, I'm not. So any thoughts that you guys have?
I was going to jump in with that whole, it's like anything. I always think back to when the kids were babies. And so whether you were nursing them or bottle feeding them, and when you move to food and you're like, oh my God, I kind of got this other thing down pat, and you move to food and you're like, oh my God, all I'm doing it all day is like feed, and you're trying to figure it out. And then that settles in. And then all of a sudden it's like, or like the 2 naps to 1 nap, and like all of those changes that you think, oh my God, like how am I going to handle that? And you get to handle it by handling it, right? So I think so much of it is just in Sue, you were talking about a good therapist or a good friend earlier, and Sharon, you mentioned these go together. Sharon, you mentioned about just the isolation, right? Or, feeling like, okay, am I the only one that feels this way? So just even giving voice to it and turning to your friend and saying like, okay, is this just me? Like, is this going to go away? But it is so hard. And you know what, Sue, the other thing, and you've been through it 5 times, Sharon and I a few less times, but each time is different too, because they're different kids and you're a different person, right? So you've got 2 things moving at the same time. It's like how my daughter says I conduct science experiments by having more than one variable, which is not the way to do it. So it's really hard because you even for yourself, it changes each time. Like I think my story would be different 5 years ago, 3 years ago, today.
Well, and also not well. So Sharon, how about you? What's your response to that in between time?
So I completely agree. And the book is for that very reason, very specifically about the period of time where you're preparing your kid to go to school, dropping them off, and coming right home. Because that is the place where I think there's this emotion of loss and of fear of the unknown, and a lot of the high stakes emotions happen during that time. And I feel like in that time period we really can be a little bit more together. I made a lot of friends at drop off, actually, because you look at another mom and you see that look in their eyes and you're like, yeah, I know, I'm with you, we're gonna make it through this drop off. Once you go home, every kid is different. Everybody's story is different. My daughter and my son are completely different. And as you said, Steph, I was a different person when I dropped my daughter off than I was when I dropped my son off. But I do think that during this period of time, when we can look at each other and know what the other person's feeling or thinking, and just kind of give a look that says, yeah, I know, I'm a mom too. I gotcha. I understand. Even if I don't have a solution, I understand.
Right. Yeah, I love that because, the thing about play groups when your kids are little is you're vulnerable at the same time. So that drop off moment, everyone who is looking woeful is in that same vulnerability. So that's a perfect time to reach out. Okay, I'm just going to share what Trisha has to say. If anybody has anything to add, put it in the chat. It's a lot to process. Thank you for this. Oh, so glad you were here with us. It is so much to process. Yeah.
I have one comment I was thinking about as Sharon was talking, like coming home. And this is something I didn't realize till it was our third again, right? Like takes a few times till you get it. So I don't know if this is true of others, but whichever way it goes. So we knew our kids were home when their bedroom doors were closed.
Yeah.
Okay. So I went through this period. And I don't know if it's because she was the third one or I'm just a slow learner, but I kept thinking she was home. Like I would go to bed and I was like, oh, good. Like, Lane's home. And then like sitting in bed, I'm like, she's not home. She's in college. So now I have taken to doors are all open. So I walk by, I have that reminder that like, okay, just me and Todd here. It's just kind of a funny thing. And I don't know if that's ubiquitous. If like all kids when they're home close their doors, I have no idea. I only know my own household.
Yeah.
Okay, Sharon, do you have anything to end with before we get off? Hold your book up one more time and then
I will hold
give
it
us
up
your
one
last
more time. It's called Miserable Mom, the do's and don'ts of sending your kid to college.
And Jessica put the link in the chat. So if people want it, they can get it.
And I have an Instagram account and a website, miserablemom.com and at Miserable Moms. And my Instagram account, I tackle a lot of midlife issues. In addition to college, I have Midlife Unfiltered, which is everything from wrinkles and sagging boobs and being stuck in traffic and that kind of stuff, to questionable parenting, which clearly I like.
We excel at that.
Exactly. Anybody who excels, God bless you.
Thank you.
Anyone who excels is a miserable mom in my book, and we're all in it together.
All right, so everybody, thank you for being here with us. We will see you next week. And Sharon, thanks so much for getting up early to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure. So much fun.